The Great Transformation, an adaptation of the story Spacetime Springer by Fritz Leiber. Gummidge was a super kitten, as he knew very well, with an IQ of about 160. Of course, he didn't talk, but he knew he would talk as soon as they started setting a place for him at the table and pouring him coffee. Baby dined in his crib on milk from a bottle, and he didn't talk. Sissy sat at table, but they didn't pour her coffee, and she didn't talk, not one word. Father and Mother, whom Gummidge had nicknamed Old Horsemeat and Kitty Come Here, sat at table and poured each other coffee, and they did talk. Case closed. Meanwhile, he would get by very well on thought projection and intuitive understanding of all human speech, not even to mention cat speech, which almost any civilized animal could play by ear. For the present, it was enough to live existence to the hilt and soak up knowledge, missing no experience proper to his age level, to rush about with tail aflame. The little cat was on the verge of truly growing up. At least, so Gummidge overheard Old Horsemeat comment to Kitty Come Here. A few short weeks, Old Horsemeat said, and Gummidge's fiery flesh would harden, his slim neck thicken, the electricity vanish from everything but his fur, and all his delightful kittishness qualities rapidly give way to earthbound single-mindedness of a Tom. They would be lucky, Old Horsemeat concluded, if he didn't turn completely surly like Ashurbanipal. Gummidge listened to these predictions with gay unconcern, and in the same spirit that he accepted so many phases of his outwardly conventional existence. The murderous sidelong looks he got from Ashurbanipal and Cleopatra as he devoured his own horsemeat from his own little tin pan. The stark idiocy of Baby, who didn't know the difference between a live cat and a stuffed teddy bear. The cleverly hidden maliciousness of Sissy, who had to be watched out for warily, and whose retarded, even warped development, Gummidge knew, was Old Horsemeat and Kitty Come Here's deepest, most secret worry. The limited intellect of Kitty Come Here, who despite the amounts of coffee she drank, was quite as featherbrained as kittens are supposed to be. And the mental stodginess of even Old Horsemeat, who basically was a rather nice old god, but a maddeningly slow-witted one. Gummidge could easily forgive all this masked inadequacy in his felino-human household, because he was aware that he alone knew the real truth about himself and about other kittens and babies as well. His earliest memories were of snoozing wrapped in terry cloth, warmed by Old Horsemeat's heat. The real truth was that Old Horsemeat and Kitty Come Here were his true parents, while Sissy and Baby were not their children, rather than the cubs of Ashurbanipal and Cleopatra. The other theory of his origin, the one about him being the only surviving kitten of a litter abandoned next door, he simply could not believe. And the secret of his birth was only the beginning. 2 days later, Gummidge had understood a further and greater secret. Since he was the child of humans, he would, upon reaching this maturation date of which Old Horsemeat had spoken, turn not into a sullen Tom, but into a godlike human youth with reddish golden hair, the color of his present fur. He would be poured coffee, and he would instantly be able to talk, probably in all languages, while Sissy would at approximately the same time shrink and fur out into a sharp-clawed and vicious, dark-haired she-cat. Exactly the same was true, Gimmich realized at once, for all kittens and babies, all humans and cats, wherever they might dwell. Metamorphosis was an essential part of the fabric of their lives. Gummidge tried to communicate his great insight to others. He told it in cat speech to Assurbanipal and Cleopatra, and even, on the off chance, to Sissy and Baby. They showed no interest whatever, except that Sissy took advantage of his unguarded preoccupation to stab him with a fork. Later, alone with Horsemeat, he projected the great new thoughts, staring with solemn yellow eyes at the old god. But the latter grew markedly nervous and even showed signs of real fear, so Gummidge desisted. You would have sworn he was trying to put across something as deep as the Einstein theory or the doctrine of original sin, old Horsemeat later told Kitty Come Here. But Gummidge was a man now in all but form, the kitten reminded himself after these failures, and it was part of his destiny to shoulder secrets alone when necessary. Gummidge continued to feel a great deal of sympathy for his parents in their worries about Sissy, and he longed for the day when he would metamorphose and be able to console them. It was heartbreaking to see how they each tried to coax the little girl to talk, and how they were more and more possessed by fears, not so much of her retarded, they thought, developments, as of her increasingly obvious maliciousness, which was directly, chiefly, to Baby. Gummidge did what little he could to help them. He had recently come to feel a quite independent affection for Baby, and so he unofficially declared himself the creature's guardian, taking his naps behind the door of the nursery and dashing about noisily whenever Sissy showed up. While approaching maturity, he knew the great transformation must be close at hand. He pictured the scene in detail. The family gathered in conclave at the kitchen table, Ashurbanipal and Cleopatra respectfully watching from floor level, himself sitting erect on chairs with paws, or would it be hands, lightly touching his cup of thin china, while old Horsemeat poured the thin, black, steaming stream. Then one night, when the sense of change was so burstingly strong in him that he knew tomorrow must be the day, the opportunity came to Gummidge. Kitty Come Here and old Horsemeat had fallen into especially sound, drugged sleeps, the former with a bad cold, the latter with one highball too many. Baby slept too, while Gummidge kept vigil under the grip. Suddenly he became aware of footsteps, and into the nursery Sissy came prowling. He retreated to the darkest corner of the room, suppressing a snarl. Sissy approached the crib and leaned over Baby in the moonlight, keeping her shadow off him. For a while she gloated. Then she began softly to scratch his cheek with a long hat pin she carried, barely keeping away from his eye. Baby awoke, but didn't cry, while Sissy continued to scratch, always a little more deeply. The moonlight glittered on the jeweled end of the pin. Gummidge knew he faced a horror that could not be countered by running about or even spitting and screeching. Some magic was needed. He sprang up onto the other side of the crib, not uttering a sound, and fixed his golden eyes on Sissy's in the moonlight. Then he moved forward straight at her evil face, stepping slowly. When his nose tip finally paused a fraction of an inch from hers, his eyes had not blinked once, and she could not look away. Then he unhesitatingly flung his spirit into her like a fistful of flaming arrows. For the next instant he felt himself enfolded by the foul, black, blinding cloud of Sissy's spirit, which his own had displaced. At the same time he heard the little girl scream very loudly, "Mommy!" Within seconds, Kitty Come Here was in the nursery, closely followed by old Horsemeat. She had caught up Sissy in her arms, and the little girl was screaming, "Mommy, Mommy!" over and over again, miraculously following it with the command, "Hold me tight!" Then Baby finally dared to cry. The scratches on his cheek came to attention, and Gummidge, as he had known must happen, was banished to the basement amid cries of horror and loathing, chiefly from Kitty Come Here. The little cat did not mind. No basement would be 1/10 as dark as Sissy's spirit that now enshrouded him for always, hiding all his carefully stored thoughts and ideas, blotting out forever even the imagining of the scene of first coffee drinking and first speech.